Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today, we're doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. We finally got enough data to look at Explorer. We're going to be focusing on best of one today. Probably do best of three next week. Best of three formats typically take a little bit longer to accumulate a variety of data. For best of three right now, I'm only seeing Amalia combo as well as Izzet Phoenix. We're not getting much diversity beyond that. A big thing that's happened since we last recorded, cons came to Arena, so we got a lot of the delve spells, most notably Treasure Cruise, which is improved, and allowed Phoenix to be pretty close to what it is in Pioneer. The other counterpoint is Pioneer unbanned Smuggler's Copter, which is featured in a whole bunch of decks now, so we are at a bit more of a disconnect as opposed to closer to Pioneer than what we were at one point. So really hope that when they do the Kaladesh remastered draft in January that they introduce Smuggler Copter back in there just to give us the availability to play it, because it's being played in like Gruul Vehicles. Rakdos Midrange is playing it now alongside Inti. It's being played in like a bunch of different shells, so something to keep in mind. So we're going to be looking at data from Untapped GG, what you see on the screen. Link is in the video description if you want to get started with Untapped and track your win rates and see a bunch of deck stats. I'll link and timestamp all the deck lists themselves so you can copy and paste. We are going to be looking for popularity of the day, and then we'll look at stats. So popular deck in terms of volume of play doesn't necessarily correlate to win rate. People play decks they like. Cheap decks or flavor of the weeks, it doesn't necessarily always correlate. Sometimes it does. So just kind of giving you an idea of what you can expect and then the corresponding win rate. So Amalia combo is kind of the pseudo infinite life gain combo. That's been very popular in Pioneer as well as in Explorer. It's pretty much card for card. 16%. We have Azorius Control coming back up to 12%. Izzet Phoenix at 11%. There's also Grixis Phoenix, which we'll look at both the lists. So Phoenix is actually the most represented deck when you think about the concepts of what the decks are. It's just kind of the configuration that's different, but it's about 18% combined. So it's actually the most represented between the two colors. Selesnya Angels, Abzan Greasefang, and Boros Heroic. Angels is usually a deck you see at like Platinum, and then it kind of tapers off as you go up. I would say like if you're looking for kind of a life gain style deck, the Amalia combo also has the ability to just eat it, like wipe the other creatures, so it's a little bit better in that sense. If we look at just kind of where things are trending, Amalia combo has consistently been towards like for the last month. We are seeing like Phoenix just pick up like really big popularity from the release of cons. We see both versions just popping up here, and then we're also seeing Azorius Control, where it's at 5% shoot up to 12%. The Azorius Control deck has a reasonable, like just having all the cheap sweepers. We'll take a look at the deck. It does help against this Amalia combo. There was DreamHack, the RC the Regional Championship this past weekend for Pioneer, 1,300 players, and it was won by Azorius Control. So we are going to look December 12th through to December 21st, almost holiday time. Platinum to Mythic rank, 37,000 games played of Magic. And the top winningest deck is also the highest played deck. It is Abzan Amalia combo at 76%. So how this works, you have a Wild Growth Walker out, and then you cast Amalia. And then any way you gain life makes it so that you explore with Amalia, which then gains you 3 life, which makes you explore with Amalia, which gains you 3 life. And then you basically get it to the point where Amalia's power is equal to 20, then it wipes away all the other creatures. Now, notably, if it goes above 20, it creates a loop and it just keeps going, and then you draw the game. So the way you do this, and you could kind of win, obviously attack with a big Amalia. You have Dina, wherever you gain life, each opponent loses a life, so you can drain them out that way. You can gain life with Prosperous Innkeeper, with Luminarch Veteran, with the food token. You can explore with Cenote Scout, so there's a bunch of different ways to enable that. You have Jarina as a way to make your Amalia actually, this is non-human. Enters the battlefield, exile, sacrifice humans you control, gain hexproof and indestructible. So there's no human. I don't know why they're playing this one, to be honest. It keeps your life gainers alive, but I guess it's just like graveyard hate in the main that can be played. For some reason I thought this was a human, so it made more sense, but you'll sometimes see protection that gets played. You have your 2 durable effects with Court of Calling and Collected Company for Amalia. You can do it at kind of instant speed at your opponent's end step, then you untap and attack in with the Amalia. You also have Return of the Ranks to bring back any of the combo pieces that you need. Now, notably, if you do Selfless Savior on your Wild Growth Walker, it will not die to Amalia, and then it goes past 20, so then you also draw the game that way there. So just little things to keep in mind as you're playing the game. The next deck is Azorius Control, 74%, and this deck here, Temporary Lockdown, as we see, hits every creature in this deck, and notably it exiles them, so it gets them rid of the graveyard. Play that with like Get Lost, Marches, you have some counters in there that are cheap, Supreme Vertica is another sweeper, and then your Planeswalker package is your win con along with Shark Typhoon, as well as a couple of Restless Anchorage in the mana base, and Hall of the Storm Giant should be hanging out over there along with the Castle Mantras. So counter, kill, Planeswalkers, kind of tried and true package for blue-white control. Seeing an increased number of temporary lockdowns in the main to address more of these aggressively slanted decks. We then move to mono red aggro. So 70%, really nice win rate here. So this is combining Annex, kind of the old Eldraine version of mono red, Annex Cleave. Then you also have Monstrous Rage, which notably gives trample. So if you have a decent board state, you can build that up. One card that you might want to consider for this type of deck is either Roiling Vortex to shut off the life gain, or you can go with Rampaging Ferocidon, which also prevents life gain, so it shuts off the Amalia combo as well. We're seeing a lot of, like, I have Gruul and Pioneer, and it's shifted to have 1 Ferocidon main, 2 in the side. With Huntmaster's Redemption, you can tutor it as well. But you have your Kamanos, Swiss Spears, Play with Fires, you got the Burning Tree into Robber, Lightning Strike helps if you run into the odd Greasefang, just a lot of interaction for their combo pieces. Bone Crusher Giant as well could be interaction, and then some light up the stages in the mix. The one thing I would say with 20 lands, you probably don't want this many Castle Embers. You have 8 lands really, because they count themselves, that will not allow us to come and play untapped. You really want your lands to come into play 1, 2, 3 at least to come into play untapped. So I wouldn't play this many castles. You're also not like super heavy on creatures in this particular version, so I'd probably just cut the castles altogether. Just play like Ahsoka Zen and then another mountain, to be honest. At the very least, cut a castle and play Ahsoka Zen in the mana base. We then go to Azorius Spirits, 67% win rate. And this version here, we have your Spirit Tribal, so Mausoleum Wanderers, Spectral Sailors, Supreme Phantom. We also have Spectral Adversary as a way to phase out both your creatures as well as your opponents. So you can actually like interrupt the combo, which is kind of cool. Fewer copies of Shacklegeist, instead kind of playing these additional cards, Rattle Chains to flash in your other spirits and give protection. Fewer number of counters in this deck. We just see Lofty Denial as a 1-of, and then Geist Snare. Portable Hole, just early removal in the deck. Errant and Giada, not a spirit, but has flash itself and lets you play flash creatures from the top of your library, or flying creatures, so all your creatures can basically sneak into play from the top of your library. So it's like virtual card advantage. Catilda is a lifelinker, which is pretty nice, that scales with the number of spirits you have. Skyclave has some removal, and then Spell Queller can interrupt on the stack as well. 1 Mutavault in the mana base, 1 Cavern of Souls as well. Moving on, we go to Boros Heroic. Nothing really changed in this list from the past week, 66%. Play small creatures that get bigger or get bonus when you target them with spells, most notably Illuminator Virtuoso with Double Strike. You want to throw on like Monstrous Rage, which is a big card that it gained from Wilds. Gives a boost in power, gives a trample. Reckless Rage has some removal. You can put counters, vigilance, protection spells kind of all mixed in. Dreadhorde lets you flash stuff back from the graveyard. There's a lot of cheap instants and sorceries that draw you cards in cycle, Ancestral Anger, Defiant Strike, so gives you the initial boost and then also gets you that value there. So very aggressively slanted deck that looks... It was very good when Mono Green was very popular. It has a tough time against like heavy removal based decks, especially ones when Rakdos was running more copies of like Shieldred's Edict was a little rough, or like even Liliana sometimes, because you sometimes just go in on like 1 to 2 creatures and then the Edict gets around the protection effects, which kind of hurts when you're trying to push through those last points of damage. We then go to Boros Convoke, probably the most popular of the Boros decks right now. From my understanding, this has a very rough Amalia matchup, but this one is looking to turn 1, you go like Ornithopter or Voldaren or Thraben Inspector. Turn 2, you target any of those artifacts with Gleeful Demolition, and then you can convoke out Knight Errant or Venerated Loxodon for free. This version's on the Regal Bunnicorn to get really large, and then you have Ember Cleaves to kind of boost the damage on top of it with Double Strike and Trample, and then Imidane's Recruiter also boosts your team as well. So kind of the dump the hand, refill, smash really hard. So you're going wide, you can go tall with this deck, and then you can believe in the cleave, all things considered. Karn got banned, but Mono Green still lives on, 64%. So this is more of a creature stompy version, so it's kind of interesting to see the direction it's gone. So you still have your 1-drops for your Accelerants, 3 Wolf Willows, you still have your Kiora package, 4 Old Growth, 1 Pelucranos. Playing a couple copies of Uvenwald Oddity, Cavalier of Thorns, you got Gargs on the top end, you have Invasion of Chandalar. So this one's kind of interesting where it doesn't really do much the turn it comes down for 5 mana. Like you return up to 3 permanents from your graveyard to your hand. You have to attack it to get the value. And then I will pull it up because I don't know what this card does when it flips. And this is, okay, we're going for Ants. It becomes a creature. There we go. At the beginning of your upkeep, it's an enchantment actually. You put a permanent from your hand onto the battlefield. I think this card's not really impactful. I'd probably just play more copies of Gargaroth, to be honest. Silverback in here, and Nissa, a natural growth in here as well. So a little bit of fluff on the top end. Storm does help you find all these pieces. In your mana base, you probably still want a copy of Beseju and 1 copy of Lair of the Hydra, I would say, but more of a stompy version. I just think there's a lot of kind of, these 5 cards are a little fluff. Like a natural growth at times could be a little win more. I think like Gargaroth's a reasonable choice. We've seen the meta be fairly aggressive. This also can attack into Wandering Emperor, which is nice, where some of these other bigger dummies just get exiled in lieu. First Phoenix deck. So I'm going to cover Izzet and Grixis in kind of concurrency, but Grixis is actually lower win rate than some of the other decks following it. Izzet Phoenix is at 58% win rate. So what the cards that are being played are Picklock Prankster, that helps you mill in, also gives you another body, Flying Vigilance, nice offense defense. Ledger Shredder helps you kind of loot through your deck. Playing a lot of cheap instants, Considers, you have Sleight of Hands and Ops, so 12 kind of 1-mana lootings, or kind of draw cyclers. Fiery Impulses removal, Lightning Axes removal that you can pitch your copies of Arclight, a Spell Pierce in here, a Borrower for bounce, Galvanic Iteration. Some copies of the Licensors in the main is interesting, just trying to hedge, I guess, the mirror, but I guess if it's bad, you can just discard it to Lightning Axe. Treasure Cruise is the big card that gain from here. You're putting so many cheap cards into your library that this becomes a 1-mana draw 3. Very useful in that regard. 18 lands. The one thing I kind of find funny with these decks is you're on an 18 land to Hall of the Storm Giants, which seems excessive. I would probably more sooner play Den of the Bugbear. I just don't see how consistently you're going to get to 7 lands in this deck, because oftentimes if you have extra lands, you're going to discard it to like Ledger Shredder, kind of loot them away in that regard, maybe toss them away to Lightning Axe as well. Grixis Phoenix is at 56, so a couple percentage lower. So this is actually a Dimir deck that just happens to have Phoenix in it. So you're using kind of the same draw package, slightly few copies. You have Thoughtseize in here, Fatal Pushes, Bitter Triumph as a catch-all removal for planeswalkers and creatures that you can then discard the Phoenix. Your same Ledger Shredder, Picklock Prankster, but you also get access to Shieldred. A lot of card draw means you gain a lot of life, especially with Treasure Cruise as well. Treasure Cruise draw 3, gain 6 seems really nice. 21 lands in this, like a little bit closer with the Steam Vents, and then you're playing a couple red sources just to enable the hard cast Phoenix if needed. Then move to 5 Color Quintarious combo. So this deck here is a Karuga Companion, so all your cards have to cost 3 or more. And what you're trying to do is basically get to 5 mana, or potentially 6, You cast Quintarious, you discover 4, it always gets a clone, you copy Quintarious, the Spark Doubles creates copies that are non-legendary, so then the static ability stacks multiple times, and then you just, each time you cast something from exile, you deal 2, gain 2, and you just kind of combo kill your opponent that way there. Trumpeting Carnosaur can also help you set up the chain. You're using things like Greater Tanuki to help you find lands and get ahead, similar with ChefNet Monitor. Both allow you to ramp up early. You have Leyline Binding as effectively a 1-mana removal in this deck because you're playing domain cards, or like all the colors. Colossal Sky Turtle is mainly used to like channel here. You're just basically using it as a bounce effect or to a regrowth. Herd Migration could be a win condition, but more often than not will be used to search for a basic land. And then Virtue Persistence is a 2-mana removal spell. You're playing a bunch of Triomes in here to enable the domain ability for the deck. And then lastly, Mono Black Devotion 53.6. This is one that's leveraging Bloodletter of Aclazotz that doubles the amount of damage. So if you like Bloodletter into Grey Merchant, it doubles the amount of drain you do. So it could potentially just be like a combo kill. Cut downs, you should probably be playing Fatal Push. In the main is over cut downs, Thought Seizes, Warlock Class for some card advantage, adds to Devotion, Deep Cavern Bat for hand hate, Gifted Aetherborn for life gain, Arena draws you more cards, Obliterator can soak up some damage in the creature matchups, kind of force awkward blocks, some Murderous Riders in here. This should probably be Shieldred, to be honest. Just more impactful of a card. Obliterator, when it's good, it's great, but more often than not, it's kind of meh. This is also leveraging Nykthos to hopefully gain you a bunch of mana. So that's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing. Like I said, we'll be back with best of 3 next week, and we'll take it from there. Thanks for watching.